Good evening, and welcome, Class of 2020. Welcome to your families and your friends, and to the entire Bennington community. Welcome to all who have joined us here tonight. Tonight marks the beginning of the virtual celebration of the 85th commencement of Bennington College. And we are doing something very different this year. Like much of the world, we are at home tonight and have had to reimagine this event for you in light of public health recommendations. It's the right thing to do, but it isn't what we had imagined for your graduation. Bennington College has always been defined by its collective and collaborative spirit. Our interwovenness is what makes this education exceptional. The lessons of these last few challenging months is that our connection to one another is not reliant on our physical proximity. Together and apart, we are a community of curious, creative, and tireless learners. We are still Bennington. Tonight we will hear from your student speaker, Dasia Haley, and from an extraordinary Bennington alumna, Nigel Poor. And tomorrow we will come together again for the official conferring of degrees. And now, it is my pleasure to introduce to you a member of the class of 2020 whose passion for justice and equality you likely already know. Dasia Haley is a student of Black Studies, Literature, and Psychology. Her academic path at Bennington has been driven by a desire to understand how we create belonging and community through our differences. Dasia's efforts have changed the Bennington College campus for the better. She is a co-creator of the Crosset Library's Black Studies Guide, which catalogs the college's available writings by and about Black writers, artists, activists, historians, dancers, playwrights, musicians, and more. And she is one of the recent student leaders of the Reflect, Rebuild, and Rise Diversity Conference at Bennington. We are inspired by her efforts. It is my pleasure to introduce to you now Class of 2020 student speaker, Dasia Haley.
It is very disheartening and unfortunate that we are ending our time at Bennington in a very non-traditional way, due to the given circumstances in the world today. We were all waiting for this day, for our moment to happen, as we worked so diligently to get to where we are now. Here's a reminder that the work you all have done on this campus has not gone unnoticed. Class of 2020, if there's one thing that I have learned during this time of social distancing, is that nothing about our class has been traditional. And in the midst of these times of uncertainty, we managed to push ourselves to persevere through the finish line. So, I am not entirely sure how I can begin to wrap up 4 years in a short amount of time, but let's take a shot at it. A lot has happened in these past four years. We've celebrated birthdays, ventured to new places, and seen sides of ourselves that caused a great deal of confusion and emotional growth. We've shown a great deal of resilience withstanding all the trials and tribulations we have faced throughout our undergraduate years. And boy, what a long, but also fast 4 years it has been. Coming from Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love, I always faced a huge discomfort when it came to talking about the city that most people only see as a historical site. I carry pride on my back when I think back to the many different odds I beat. Especially growing up in one of the most dangerous cities in the country, I spent much of my life living in fear. I grew up in the Strawberry Mansion section, which is named as one of the top 3 worst neighborhoods in Philadelphia. I suffered from sleepless nights, the ringing of gunshots no matter the time of day, and constant yelling and fighting throughout the streets. This is where young teenagers are becoming more and more prone to dropping out of school due to the neighborhood they live in and their circumstances at home. It is clear for me to see how easy it could have been for me to fall victim to the streets because of the many temptations I faced every day. But look at me, having the honor to share my words with all of you on this special night. So, what does it mean for me, a black girl from Philly, to be attending a school like Bennington College? My senior year of high school, I applied to 12 different schools, and none of them were Bennington. My college counselor suggested I apply to Bennington, this quaint little college on the top of the hill, in the middle of nowhere, it seemed. At that point in time, there was no way I was going to be spending these past 4 years here. But fate has a strange way of switching things up a little. I came to visit the weekend of Decision Day, and the beauty of this place was astonishing. During my visit, I stayed at the Davis Alumni House, and that weekend, Janice Pryor, a black alumna who graduated in 1971, was staying there too. I was invited to sit in on an interview with her that was being conducted by then current students. Janice was being interviewed about her experience at Bennington in the early 70s. After the interview ended, she and I stayed up talking. She told me many stories about her time here. I thought if Janice had the ability to persevere through the experiences of this place, then I can too. Janice Pryor, as well as my late grandmother, were the two people who helped me decide to commit to Bennington on the train ride back home. When I arrived for orientation at Bennington College here in rural Vermont, I felt safe for the first time in my life, but soon encountered other challenges I never expected. Never would I have imagined being a student at Bennington or having the honor to be the class commencement speaker. Most of my time spent here has been figuring out who I am, figuring out what I want to do in the world, and taking a deeper look into how I take up space as a black woman, especially in a society where long-term oppression is still very present in whatever I do. It took me a while to fully get a grasp of what it meant to be a Bennington student while also being black. I often felt like I had to separate my blackness from being a student at an institution such as Bennington, until I later learned that my experiences as a black woman are the experiences that needed to be most highlighted in and out of the classroom. It wasn't until the middle of the summer, before starting my senior year, that I began to understand that Bennington is the place that allowed me to view my blackness through a different lens. Growing up immersed in black culture had its benefits and perks, but while being at Bennington, I began to question my identity and what it exactly meant to be a black student here. This is the place where I was forced to look at my blackness through the lens of the white gaze, something that I had never had to do before. I began to question what it meant to belong to a place that struggles to mend our differences in order for us to better coexist. This question led me to co-organize Bennington's first ever Diversity and Inclusion Conference alongside Ahmed Yasser and Vice President for Institutional Inclusion, Equity, and Leadership Development, Delia Science. During my first year, I had the pleasure of being enrolled in a course titled Black Spring. This course was a curation class where we put together a show in the Usen Gallery. This show displayed the lives of black students at Bennington in the past. Being a part of the curation was truly enlightening for me, as I saw how Bennington still has a lot of work to do. The greatest thing about the class of 2020 is that I have witnessed how many of my classmates have taken the time to involve themselves in trying to make this place into what it has the potential to be. The administration cannot do this work without the students, and the students cannot do the work without them. The building of transparency and a better means to communicate should become a foundational framework to how the work continues. On Monday, October 14th, 2019, I left my senior seminar class and sat at the end of the world and could not begin to process that all of this is ending very soon. Fall has always been my favorite part about being here in Bennington. I watched the trees sway and the sun set. A feeling of not wanting to give any of this up washed over me, but it was time. It is time. I'm sure most of us have heard the saying, college is the best 4 years of your life. There is nothing scarier than thinking that the most fun I'll ever have was in these past 4 years. I believe these years in college were everything but the best time of my life. Because the best time comes when you're practicing what you studied at school in the real world. We didn't just spend 4 years at a place that forces you to step out of your comfort zone, to be self-governed, to explore everything this place has to offer and things you thought you had little interest in, just for this time to be the best time of our lives. The point of these 4 years was to constantly construct and reconstruct different versions of who we aspire to be. I'm sure most of us have spent plenty of time questioning the type of person we want to present to the world outside of this place. I believe I speak for the majority of us when I say it's been a steady process of growth. It is bewildering to think how most of us were still teenagers figuring out how to live after high school. Now, we're leaving this place as young adults who took the time to explore every part of who we are, as well as our interests in various disciplines. We are the young adults the world may have been waiting for this entire time. If you don't leave this place and fight like your life depends on it, fight for equality, fight for immigration rights, fight for people of color, fight for Black people, fight to make the world a safer place to live, ask yourself, has 4 years spent here meant anything at all? Class of 2020, give yourselves a round of applause. Not only am I congratulating you on getting a degree, but also cheers to figuring out who you are, fighting through the sleepless nights, fighting through wanting to give up, and most importantly, fighting for you and getting to this milestone. I want to give a special thank you to the host of faculty and staff members who have helped me evolve throughout the years. Thank you to those in whom I have found a lifelong mentorship in. Thank you to those who have helped me create such amazing work to give to my community. Thank you to the friends I have made throughout the years. Thank you to Stokes and Kilpat for being my home away from home. And a very, very, very special thank you to my dearest friends, Kaya Kirk and Akma Yasir, for making these final moments as a Bennington College student a bit more bearable. For pushing each other beyond our limits, for being there and constantly giving the reminder to not be so hard on ourselves. And of course, being able to collaborate with each other to produce such amazing senior works. Mira was someone who taught me to see the value in giving someone I didn't know a smile or just genuinely asking someone, how are you? She was also a person who carried a different type of closeness with people here on campus, especially with us who are graduating today. The closeness that we have been experiencing throughout these years has been among the most vulnerable times where we have allowed ourselves to just be. From term to term, we have taken the time to build our little families that best fits the person we are during that moment. And we also carry with us friendships we have had since starting here, or friends we just made in our senior year. Mira was someone who valued her relationships with people in ways that never ceased to amaze me, because she gave herself and her space to many of us so gracefully. For that, I'll always cherish the closeness I built with people, even if it was just for a month, or term, or multiple years. I leave with you this wisdom. Cherish the people that come into your life, even if it is just for a short amount of time. Always take care of yourselves, even if it is as simple as reminding yourself to just breathe. The biggest aspect of this place that we should all take away is that every single person in this world should try to be kinder to themselves, as well as giving love in ways we desire to be loved. I found a love here that I always thought was unattainable. It was the love around us that carried us through this place, whether we recognized it or not. It is the love that lifts us out of the dark, the love that moves mountains and makes miracles happen. Let us all go make miracles happen and hold on to those who shine their love on us. And I just want to say, one more time, congratulations to the class of 2020. And in the words of Mira, Don't be boring. Yay!
Thank you, Deja. And now, it is my great pleasure to introduce to you an alumna of Bennington College, whose expansive career embodies the tireless curiosity and compassion that we are always working to cultivate here. Her fusion of art, justice, and technology is an interdisciplinary model for creating something entirely new and meaningful in the world. You probably know multimedia artist Nigel Poor as the co-creator, co-producer, and co-host of the award-winning podcast Ear Hustle, which is in its 5th season and has garnered broad listener and critical acclaim. Ear Hustle explores the daily realities of life inside prison and stories from the outside through conversation and storytelling with those who have lived it. For their work, Nigel and her podcast colleagues Erlan Woods and Aaron Rashawn Thomas were Pulitzer Prize finalists this year. Nigel is also an accomplished visual artist. She is a professor of photography at California State University, Sacramento, where she too has been working under the new conditions of remote learning with our own students this spring. Her work has been exhibited at the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, the M.H. DeYoung Museum, the San Diego Museum of Contemporary Art, and the Corcoran Gallery of Art, among others. In her time at Bennington, Nigel studied literature and photography. As she said recently in a video message to incoming students, Nigel fondly recalls spending a lot of time in VAPA, surrounded by creative people and deeply engaged in conversation. In her words, Bennington is a place to really dig into your subject, question yourself, and learn a lot. We are proud to call her an alumna. While I wish it could be on campus as we had planned, we are so grateful to hear from Nigel Poor tonight from her home in California.
When I received the invitation to give the commencement speech at Bennington College, all of this stuff ticked through my head. I was going back to a place that I loved, a place that was full of memories, and a place that shaped so much of the way I am right now. And I wasn't going back as a tourist. I was going back to meet and to celebrate with the class of 2020. And I was like, hell yes, I am doing this. It is an incredible honor. And I started counting the weeks until I could get there. I started fantasizing about all of the old places and how great it was going to be to hang out with like-minded creative people who were on the cusp of graduating and putting all of their educational experience to use out in the world. And so I started thinking about all the things that I wanted to share with you. The important stuff, like how a Bennington education really does set you up to be successful out in the world. And then kind of the funny things, like stories about the infamous and incredibly inappropriate yearly student event called the Dress to Get Laid Party. And believe it or not, in the 80s, we didn't think that was such a bad idea. And then I wanted to share with you about how naive I was about future technology. In 1982, when I was a freshman, I think there was like one computer class being offered. And I thought, why would I take that class? Computers? Those are never really going to catch on. So all to say that I was incredibly thrilled, and I started counting the weeks until I was going to get to campus. And then COVID-19 hit. And like a lot of people, I simply didn't understand how serious it was. I thought, I'll be home for a couple weeks, and then everything is going to go back to normal. But as we all now know, that's not what happened. As the virus spread and people got sick and many people started dying, we all saw our world just shrink. And it seemed like there was only one conversation going on, and it was all about the worldwide pandemic. Everything else in our lives, our expectations, our dreams, our work, our community, all of that was pushed to the side. And people started filling their personal grievance buckets with fear, disappointment, anger, sadness, and loss. And of course, there was good reason for that. Everything we knew about life and how we function in the world was taken away from us just like that. Overnight, our world completely changed. And I wanted so much for this day to be a time of celebration, for you all to revel in everything that you've accomplished, the memories that you've made, the knowledge you gained about your chosen field, the things that you've learned about yourself, the friendships that you made with teachers and fellow students, all the late nights you had studying, the fears that you wouldn't be able to finish, all the sunrises that you saw because you were up doing God knows what. And with my words, I really wanted to honor the life you made as a college student. And not just any college student, a Bennington College student. The beauty, the pain, the wonder, the hard work, the exquisiteness of it all. Bennington is a special place, and right now all of that might feel a little vague, a bit thin, but I'm here to remind you that if you aren't feeling celebratory, if this occasion you so looked forward to is feeling less than, I implore you to try to think about it in a different way. And if you can't do that right now, I promise you that in the future, you will look back at how extraordinary your college education was, and you will be grateful for what Bennington gave you, and you will be equally proud of what you gave Bennington. Okay, let's move on to the celebration part. And as we do that, I want all of us to take a beat and imagine that we're on campus. We're standing out in front of Commons, and we all collectively turn and look to the end of the world. And it's one of those perfect Vermont spring evenings. There's kind of a light breeze, and everything is green, super green, almost like it's vibrating. And even though it's early in the season, all those fireflies are out, moving around in front of Commons. It's like they know that something special is about to happen, and they want to join in too. And as we look around, everyone is there. The graduating class of 2020, family, friends, teachers, administrators, the people who work on campus to keep it going, and I'm there too. It's this incredible group of people, all brought there for one purpose, to celebrate and bear witness to the community of Bennington. Bennington is what it is because of the community it fosters, and that community includes all of the people that we just saw in our mind's eye gathering out in front of Commons. The professors, the administrators, the people who work on campus, the land itself that Bennington stands on, and you. You are an integral part of that, and without you, it cannot be. It cannot grow and continue to be the place that we love. Being a Bennington graduate means something. It means that you are a creative problem solver, you're deeply engaged in the work that you care about, you don't care to follow the status quo, and you value conversation. And because you've spent the last years as part of this very intimate community, you understand the effects of your actions on those around you. And all of this signals that you understand the importance and transformative possibility of collaboration. We all got to Bennington in different ways, but I suspect my story will resonate with some of you. I was pretty unhappy in high school. I just didn't fit in. I was bored, depressed, people were unkind, and there was such a premium put on fitting in and being like everybody else. But in my heart, I knew it didn't have to be that way. I dreamed of being somewhere else, a place that cared and understood that people were different, and that difference is power. That learning is experimenting, that means that failure is part of the process, that information is best taken in through conversation and not just lectures. I longed so much to be in a place that felt inclusive, where you could let down your guard. And when I finally got to Bennington, it was like I stepped into the fantasy that had lived in my head for years. Because here was a place filled with people that wanted the same thing, a place where individuality within a community was where it was at. I think about that a lot. The traits I most value in myself and in others are those traits that are nurtured, encouraged, and respected at Bennington. And no matter what the current climate, those traits will serve you well. I want to share with you just a little bit about what I do, and not because I want to make this about me, but because I want to give you a concrete example of how I put those Bennington traits to use in a way that I feel really good about. And if I can do it, so can you. For many years, I've worked as a visual artist and an educator. My art career is successful, and I'm a tenured professor. Basically, I had achieved most of the goals I had set out for myself, but I'm not one to rest. I love new endeavors that challenge my assumptions, and I like to problem solve using my specific way of being in the world. So some years ago, I got really curious about prisons, specifically about how one makes a life inside a place that feels so really anti-life. In 2011, I heard about an educational program called the Prison University Project inside San Quentin State Prison in California, and they were looking for volunteer professors, so I signed up to teach the first ever history of photography class. I did that for several semesters, and through teaching, I met so many interesting people, and I really wanted to figure out how to do a collaborative project about life inside. And this is a really long story, so I'm absolutely cutting to the chase here. For several more years, I volunteered, trying to figure out the best way to tell stories, and I finally settled on the idea of audio. I had absolutely no background in audio production, but I've always been interested in the voice and how sound can tell a compelling story. And so I started talking about this idea with Earlonne Woods. He was one of the incarcerated men I worked with inside of San Quentin, and together we hatched the plan to do something impossible. We decided to create a podcast inside prison. We had so many obstacles to overcome, but we never faltered. We never told ourselves, no, we can't do this. And believe me, working in a prison, there are a bucket load of reasons that this could fail. But we gave ourselves permission to dream big, and we lived by several mottos. One was, there was always a workaround, and we always practiced patience, politeness, and persistence. Basically, we had tenacity, and we believed in us, and we didn't listen to all the people that told us there is no way you are ever going to do this. But we did. We produced the first ever prison-based podcast, and to our further delight and surprise, it quickly became a success. Ear Hustle has gotten so many voices and stories out into the world, voices and stories that are often not heard. It's also changed so many lives, including mine and Earlonne's. I'm telling you this because I get that you are graduating into a world that feels unwelcoming. It might feel like everything you thought you could count on has slipped through your fingers. Basically, you're graduating into a lockdown, and it's natural to be angry, afraid, and frustrated. And yes, you have to acknowledge those feelings, and then you have to dig deep, see the person that you are, and make a list of the talents you have and the things you care about, and put them to use. Yes, it is going to be hard, and yes, it will take time, and hell yeah, it is not fair, but you've got one life, and you have to take the time that you have and make it mean something to you. I wish I could spend a bit of time with each of you, look you in the eye, and let you know it's going to be okay and that I believe in you. But unfortunately, because of our present situation, I can't do that. So I want to leave you with just a few more thoughts. Bennington has prepared you for this, just like it prepared me, just like it prepared classes before me, and just like it will prepare classes after you. Because the success of a Bennington education isn't just about one class. Again, it's about a community, and that community goes back to 1932, and it will continue on into the future. You are a Bennington graduate, and nothing can ever take that away from you. It's something to be exceedingly proud of. And believe it or not, this time of isolation is also preparing you, because it's requiring you to find your tenacity. I know it isn't easy, but I also know you can do it. In times like this, we have to look for inspiration outside of ourselves, and sometimes that inspiration comes from unlikely places. I want to end by playing a small clip that continues to inspire me and pushes me when things seem too dark. It's from an Ear Hustle story we did about life on death row, which is really the ultimate form of sheltering in place. The audio you're going to hear is Steve Champion. He's been on the row for about 28 years now. And we couldn't get permission to speak to him in person, and so we had to figure out a workaround. So what you're going to hear is Earlonne and I are in the media lab in San Quentin on speakerphone, and Lieutenant Robinson is supervising the call. Steve Champion is in a sergeant's office on death row, handcuffed to a chair. So please, let's take a listen.
As long as you are alive, there is hope. When you are dead, that struggle is over. You can't look in terms of the future because the future is not yet here. So what do you have left? You have right now. And so that is what you have to live at, right here, right now. That's eternity.
So let's agree to remember the words of Steve Champion and together go out into the world and find our eternity in the present moment. I send my heartfelt congratulations to all of you. I'm incredibly proud to be part of your community, and I dearly hope to meet you all someday, somewhere. Take care.
Thank you, Nigel. Class of 2020, this virtual celebration, despite its limitations, is important because there is a real moment in time when you stop being students and you become graduates. It is a moment to mark. Tomorrow, after your names have been read and the ceremony concludes, you will enter a new phase in your lives. It is a moment to reflect with your family and friends and the community of people who have supported you on all that you have accomplished, and to celebrate it. Tomorrow, you become Bennington alumni, and we know what Bennington alumni can do. So join us tomorrow at noon Eastern Time, sharp, for the conferring of degrees. Good night.
The calendar says get ready for the beach. We'll park it down by the jetty and eat a peach. But we saw as we pulled up, no one was home. The sign said the beach is closed. So what are we left to do now? But go through. There's no one around to kick out anyone from the blue. And as we ride along the beach, feels like our own. The sunlight burns our skin while we feel the ocean's cold. The wave is gonna crash. The wave, it's breaking, it's breaking. I got lost in the break on a trip through space. No one's gonna keep me out.
Are you putting food on the table? Are you saying prayers before bed? Are you giving everybody else the love that you forgot to give yourself instead? Do you still get deja vu? Do you still hate the color blue? Love appears that's when